So what do you do with scraps? We make them with every single project, and our Mount Scrapmore gets bigger and bigger with every step. Today, I'm inviting you to see my Mount Scrapmore, and I'll show you my process and how I consume them. So stick with me, and I'll show you how to do it. Hi there, it's Karen Brown of Just Get It Done Quilts. I give you tips, tricks, and strategies to help you make the quilt that you want to make. And if you like what you see, please hit that subscribe button. Though I really love scraps, I honestly try to avoid them with two strategies. One, I try to choose patterns that have little or no wastage. And the second is, with every project, I accumulate all the scraps into one bag and save it to the end. Often I might need those scraps to repair any mistakes. Then I organize all the scraps by size and shape and then make every effort to incorporate them in my bag. And I call this process making an afterquilt. And I have a video about it, and I'll leave a link in the notes below. And I can't remember whether I showed you the finish of my Sugary Dew quilt, but this is the back that I made for that. And I absolutely love this quilt. And I bound it with a 1-inch binding. By using that linen, it had a beautiful weight and feel to it, and I gave it to my eldest son. But once I've made the back, any scraps left over go into this bucket beside my sewing table. The second way scraps come in is after I've trimmed up a quilt. And these are long pieces from the sides and the top, and it often includes batting. And the third way is just in my everyday sewing. When I trim something, when I find a piece lying around, I clear it off my table and I put it in the bucket as well. Now, I used to have several buckets behind my sewing area where I would sort them kind of as I went. And every month I would do a good deep sort. But I found that those buckets were getting in my way. So I bought this laundry basket and I put it under my table, and I find that so much more convenient for just keeping my area clean and clearing things off my desk. But it's been a while since I've looked at it, and I did not do much of it during my declutter challenge, and now it's time to deal with it. So when I process them, I just take it from the top and I just take it a chunk at a time. You want to have a really sharp blade in your rotary cutter to process your scraps quickly. So if you can't remember when you changed it, change it now. These two piles of scraps are offcuts from when I squared up a quilt. They consist of batting and large pieces and long strips of the backing fabric. And I like to cut as many 2.5-inch strips as possible. This I will use for binding on a future quilt. If you watch my Stashbuster 2 video, you'll remember that it's just so easy to dig into my spare binding basket to save some time when you need it. I separate the batting from all the fabric. Then I cut any remaining fabric into 2.5-inch strips if I can, and just straight strips with anything else. The smallest strip I will cut will be 1 inch. And I have saved the selvage, but I do not actually use the selvages. I bag them up and I send them off to somebody else that does. Now this flannel piece I handle exactly the same except for the big piece. I am not making 2.5-inch strips. I save flannel to do other projects out of them. I make dusters, washcloths, and some other things. And with all these batting scraps, they're too small to make into Franken batting, so I'm just chopping them up into tiny pieces, and I will use this in pillows. And I've done a video about this as well, and I'll leave a link in the notes below. So now it's time for another dive into Mount Scrapmore. And I'm finding larger pieces of fabric, I'm finding old fat quarters, and I'm beginning to separate my solid colored scraps. Now, I have no idea why, but right from the very beginning, I have always kept my solid colored scraps separate from my pattern scraps, and I actually handle them quite differently. I sort my solid colored scraps by color. I do not sort them by size, and I store my fabric with a pattern on it in 5-inch strips and 2.5-inch strips, and never by color. This next bunch of fabric is full of other backing. I guess I must have just completed a lot of quilts, but there's backing, there's strips, a lot of garbage stuff in here, and I'm suddenly overwhelmed. I have forgotten my cardinal rule of working with scraps, and that is to use my timer. I find myself burnt out. I don't want to touch these scraps anymore, and I've made an absolute disaster area of my space. So after yesterday doing too much, today all I'm wanting to do is to put everything away. And having decluttered and recently organized my sewing space, I have a spot for everything. So it's fairly quick work to get everything where it needs to be. And after working with all those scraps, my floor needs a good sweep, and my cutting board needs a good clean. I'm just using a ball of masking tape, sticky side out. It isn't going to be fun, it's not going to be pretty, but I've set the goal today to finish processing all the scrap batting in my bucket. Hard to believe that there's a downside to finishing quilts, but I've let this accumulate too long. One positive thing that I have found in my bucket is I have started 4 of my adding machine crumb strips. So when my timer goes off, I merrily switch gears and get those done. And it's so weird how these can look like a dog's breakfast, but as soon as you trim them up, they are special. And I add them to the stack of 60 strips that I've already done, and I store them with my other works in progress. Then I grab a stack of small pieces and process some crumbs, and then I make some new hexie pieces to replenish my supply. I've got all the batting done, I've processed all the backs. I realize I can put this all away and just attack it again next month. Remember, you never ever conquer Mount Scrapmore, you just keep it in check. So you might be asking, what do I do with my pattern strips that I cut into 5-inch, 2.5-inch, and the less than 2.5-inch? Well, the 5-inch ones I cut normally into 5-inch squares, and I just make cuddle quilts and crib quilts out of them for the charity that I donate to. It's just a simple, I divide them into light, medium, and dark values, and then just do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The 2.5-inch strips, if they are with the fabric, the scrap sampler block number 2 is my preferred block. And if I only have a fat quarter width, then I do the block that I did for Stashbuster number 7. And if they're even smaller than that, then I do the square in the square, or the cross, or the 2x2, or if I just have enough for a mini charm, I use them for leaders and enders. And as you can see by these piles, they can accumulate quickly. And currently I have been using these blocks in backs where I do not have enough scraps to make an afterquilt. And I use my less than 2.5-inch strips in quilt as you go blocks and these long braids. But I see also in the last couple of days working through all these scraps that I have a lot of them right at the moment. And though I have been processing them, I think I'm declaring April Get These Blocks into Quilts Month. So stay tuned. Last week on Karen's Quilt Circle, I was talking with Wendy CHOW, and we were talking about community. She's an amazing, dynamic woman, and you don't want to miss it. So I'll leave a link in the notes below. If you like these tips and would like to learn more, please subscribe to my newsletter at justgetitdonequilts.com. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell beside the subscribe button so that YouTube will notify you when I make new videos. You can also find me at Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Just Get It Done Quilts, and my website, justgetitdonequilts.com. So take care, and I'll see you next time.